Of course, anybody listening to this right now, you can always buy me coffee and cake. No coffee after midday, but cake anytime.
Oh, okay, cake. And yeah, I thought your body was a temple, sir.
It's Buddha. That's.
Hey everybody, it's John Lamberton here alongside my good friend and business partner, Mr. Jason Brockman. We are here for another episode of the Ambitious Lifestyle Business Podcast, where as always, it is our job to help you get more customers and make more money without just working harder. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this month's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the ALB podcast, where as always we are helping ambitious lifestyle business owners to design their business to deliver the lifestyle they truly want. Today's guest is Jonathan Rees. Now Jonathan delivers soft skills workshops, strategic facilitation, keynote talks and one-to-one coaching, building on his experience from a corporate life, including 14 years at Hewlett Packard, leading a virtual team spread across the globe. Jonathan helps build and improve the performance and resilience of both teams and their leaders, facilitating learning through interactive and engaging workshops. His first serious book, The Resilience Toolkit, Powerful Ways to Thrive in Blue Light Services, was published in February 2019. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, John, Jason. Really nice to see you. Thanks.
Good to see you too. And thank you for that introduction, because there's a few tricky words there for John to trip over, so that was good. I
was expecting I got away with it, didn't I?
It was nice to get a couple in there.
You got away with it.
So, experience from a corporate life. Is this two chapters of the same book, or is this literally a new life that you've embarked on since leaving HP?
No, it's a completely new life. Totally and utterly new life. I worked for HP through financial downturns, and kind of every 6 months the redundancy train would swing by, and I was a people manager, so actually the burden fell on me to choose somebody in my team from around the globe to get rid of. And usually what I'd get is a phone call from the bully boss in Texas saying, "Hey, Jonathan, you have to get rid of somebody. I suggest you get rid of X," which you can do in the US, but in the UK you couldn't. And I say, "No, you don't get this. We have to go through a process. It takes 3 months." "Well, you need to decide by Friday." And eventually, so I left him. So I left bully boss. I went to intimidating boss who used to shout at the client and swear, and the bad swear words, the really bad swear words. And then one day, the ripple went round the office. We're working remotely, and there's a redundancy package. There's a redundancy package. Only 4 of us didn't get this email. We're going, why did we not get it? And then the boss came in. She said, in the meeting room. So we went in the meeting room. She said, the buzz is that there's another redundancy package. Everyone here is eligible to take it, except you guys, because you're the project managers. Apart from Jonathan, we know you're a project manager, but the system doesn't. And I went, so I could apply. And I had a little spreadsheet, and all you had to do was drop in the currency exchange rate, because I'd been buying stock in HP for years, and it told me what payout I would get. And I jokingly in the evening just said to my wife, I could apply for redundancy tomorrow and walk away with X. And she said, well, you are doing it. Now, the reason we were at that point was because November the 5th, 2009, my dad died from a brain tumor. So he was diagnosed and lived 7 weeks and was gone. And 5 weeks after that, my son, who was 7, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And those 2 life-changing incidents kind of made me want to just chuck everything up in the air and say, okay, God, what are you going to do now? I didn't. I waited. And then so when this package swung round, I went, okay. So I applied, and the boss was livid. She was so angry. She made me work my gardening leave in the office at the client site and gave me nothing to do. So the problem is because I didn't know, where was I going to go? I was going to be an executive coach. I had this dream of providing executive coaching to corporate clients within Bristol on a kind of fee paid rate, one day here, one day there, one day here, one day there. I'd got a master practitioner in NLP. I had coaching qualifications coming out of my ears. So I was completely ready. But I wasted these 3 months when I should have been taking long lunches, taking people out for coffees, building a network outside. I spent it learning stuff that proved to be useless. So it was my first key thing. This is where I'm setting out. But what's the thing that happens when you decide to set up your own business is you have this great ambition and I'm going to do this and I'm going to head in this direction. And then something else happens. So the first thing that happened was I got a call from West Sussex County Council. Will you come and teach some of our folk NLP? And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be an executive coach, but I can train in NLP. That's fine. So I said yes. Delivering this day, phone rings at lunchtime. The boss who'd organised the work says, I've got a bit of a problem. Can you come and coach me on the way home through Arundel? So I dropped into this woman's office and sat and gave her 90 minutes executive coaching and drove home going, that's really good fun. I can do both of these two things as a fusion. So hence why you have such a mouthful of an introduction for me. It's because actually I do all of these things, and that's partly a problem for me as much as a blessing. So that's how I ended up where I am. Of course, the reality has been completely different. I think I've probably done 50, 60 hours of executive coaching in 10 years. I've given hours and hours and hours away for free, because that's the other thing. Once people find that, you're setting up your own business and you're just getting started, or you've taken a redundancy package, let's have a coffee. Let's have a coffee actually means I want to get some free coaching from you and I know how to get it.
Yeah.
So, forewarned is forearmed. I still do far too much free coaching. If you ask my lovely wife, she'd say, you give away far too much time. And you'd probably say exactly the same to me. But that's what my business has ended up being.
The amount of times I've had this conversation with Sarah, and I think the word I use, when she was teaching, I used to say she did a lot of voluntary work.
You were quite rude about that in the podcast, which was brilliant, by the way.
Pro bono, I've used it as well. I said, you're doing some pro bono work now. And this, grabbing a coffee. I think a few years ago I did a review at the end of the year as to where I felt I'd wasted my time. And so the way I did that was I opened up my Google Calendar for the previous year and I just went through, where did I go? What did I do? Who did I meet? And I would say 80% of those, can I grab a quick coffee and have a chat with you, John? Those meetings went nowhere.
Yep.
Those were the meetings whereby I left home half an hour before the meeting. I got there. I spent an hour and a half chatting with someone, another half an hour driving. That's it's 2-3 hours wasted when I could have been creating assets or actually growing my business. Particularly when you first start in your business, though, that's dangerous, isn't it?
Well, the interesting thing is I don't begrudge spending the time with anybody. They're often interesting conversations or an opportunity to help somebody think differently or work through a challenging situation. I'm more than happy to help people, but it's only in the last year, really, through a load of therapy, of realizing that actually I am more happy to help other people than I am me. So in a way that comes on to, ambitious lifestyle business. If I can go here next. So ambitious. There will be some people listening, watching this who are going, well, you're going to be an executive coach. Doesn't sound very ambitious to me. You're not going to make £1 million doing that, are you? No, of course I'm not. It's a time for money thing. And, I know you can do group coaching, yada, yada. My version of ambitious. So I would not describe myself as ambitious, partly because through my upbringing, being ambitious was a dirty thing to do. The ambitious people in the big corporate that my dad worked for years, basically were seen to be ruthless is the word that went alongside it. And so I'm not a ruthless person. Well, maybe I am in some ways, but what the size of my ambition is my ambition, right? So if you have an ambition to build a £500,000 company, brilliant, have at it. Just recognize how much work there is. My ambition was actually much smaller than that. And in a way, it was to make sure that we can live. And things like the mortgage got paid off pretty much effectively because of the redundancy package. That's a great gift that I was given. And our income dropped. My income dropped by more than 2/3 overnight. But actually, life has been great. You can exist with one television in your house, with one car outside, I have a mountain bike that is 15 years old. And my lad who's into buying nice things going, Dad, it's a bit sad. Your mountain bike's really old. I'm going, it works, Osh. It still functions. So the size of your ambition, it's your ambition. And that leads on to the kind of second bit, which is it's also your business. So it's taken me literally a decade to stop feeling bad about giving Monday afternoons to my health and well-being, right? My lifestyle is now, as I've recognized, because I was thinking about this, you can tell I've done some prep. I don't really have a lifestyle business at all. We know that the Dragon's Den guys go, it's a lifestyle business. I'm not going to invest. I'm out. Well, hang on a minute. I've crafted, by accident probably, a life that means Monday afternoons is about therapy and not working. So lunchtime comes on Monday, stop. If somebody says, can you do a call on a Monday afternoon? No, sorry, I don't. Not for anybody, not for anything, not for any money. That's it. I go to a personal trainer on a Wednesday afternoon, and it used to be 4:30. And he texted me and said, I've got other opportunities. Can we move it back to 3:45? Yeah, fine. I have the luxury, but maybe we shouldn't call it that. I have crafted it so that I can spend Wednesday afternoon going and hulking weights with this guy who's an ex-Royal Marine, and being in considerable pain the next day. And Fridays is a good day because I have less pain. And then spending an hour on my personal training again on a Friday, etc. So I've crafted something that enables me to do that. And with COVID has seen a massive reduction in work and in income. So I'm going, maybe I should take a part-time job. Well, part-time job that I can get that does what I do pays about a quarter of what I need. And so I'd be giving up 3 days to somebody for less than I could earn potentially in a day, and losing my own time to do the things that are good for me. But over the years, it has taken me a decade to learn that I need to prioritize me, because I've prioritized everybody else for the last 10 years. And for some people, there's a bit of a shock now when I go, sorry, no, don't do coffees. We can do one on Friday afternoon if you like. Can we do it at 1:00? No, I'm in a podcast. So your size of ambition, your business, and to match your lifestyle. Sorry, Jason.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that's interesting. Actually, we have lots of one-to-one calls. You and I, you take that you use that part of the club a lot, and you're very modest with everything, really, in terms of that. And I think when you said ambition, well, I don't really have any ambition. It's kind of actually you do. You absolutely do. So I was just wondering what that looks like now for you. What do you think that ambition looks like?
That's a really interesting and a tough question. So initially, it could be about things like, I have a lot of these in boxes, and my ambition is to shift all of those. I think actually my ambition is to create something that generates me a baseline income, so I can stop worrying about the money all the time and start just going, okay, so I've got this opportunity here. And actually it might not come to fruition, but I'm not going to panic about it. Whereas literally in the last week, a piece of work that had been confirmed to me verbally, but no emails generating any response. I got a phone call from somebody saying, okay, we need to get these things in the diary. And I'm going, thank goodness for that. Well, I'd like to not worry about that. I'd like to actually feel okay about, and here I go, treating myself to going to the PT or whatever it might be. So that's what my ambition is more now. Yes, there'll be some people who hear this and hear, oh, you're talking about a passive income. And let's just blow that one out of the water. It's not passive in any way, shape or form. My course on how to build a resilient life is 17 videos. It probably took about 8 weeks to build. And I'm good at video. I can do it fast. I'm relatively good at the camera work and everything else. Quite confident. I know the stuff, but editing takes flipping hours. So it's a huge amount of work. And you say, is that passive income? No, it really isn't. Then I've got to handhold and run the Facebook group or the Slack group or whatever it is. But that's where I'd like to get to. So I just don't have to worry about the base level income anymore. Sometimes I think it would be great to turn over 100 grand of sales on a course like that would be just amazing. And of course, we've already all done the maths on what that turns out as a £99 course. But so again, I'm still feeling that that's not very ambitious.
And again, one-to-ones, it's kind of, well, I haven't really got anything done this quarter. I think we looked at the quarter stuff, didn't we? I haven't really done anything, or I don't feel like I've progressed any. And then we kind of look back over what that has actually looked like, and it you just don't kind of see those things. So it's nice to be able to kind of open eyes, I guess, really, about what you are actually achieving, which is great.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that the coaching time with you and the 1% Club does, is that I have a tendency to only focus on the things that I haven't done. Well, I've got 3/4 of the way towards this, or I've done 60% of this. And there's this little voice in my head going, yeah, that's because you never finish anything. But then I suddenly, as I was going through this world domination planner that you guys send out, I decided when it arrived that, okay, I'm just going to use it. I have my own planner. I don't care. I'm just going to follow your instructions and see how I get on. And it was only because I went through and it says, what has gone well this month? And I filled in the box and I went on down over the page and I said, hang on a minute. I've run an open course this month for the first time ever and filled it. That's amazing. I've created an online training course in an app-based platform you can access through a web browser or whatever, and I sold a place. I've never done that before. That's amazing. So yeah, it's really helpful to be forced to reflect positively on these things at the same time.
Too often we don't celebrate the wins. We remember the failures. We always remember the things we haven't done. And we certainly beat ourselves up for the things we haven't done. But often when we hit a goal, we go, that's nice, what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're constantly trying to climb a mountain instead of going, stop, turn around, look at the view. I'm really struck by, so I also realized that I just compare my progress against other people's and feel very small and very inadequate. So you had Alan on the podcast a couple of months ago. Or was it? Yeah. Was he the most recent one? No, the one before.
2 ago.
That was blindingly good. And he is a man on fire. It was really interesting. It was just fascinating stuff. And I realized I just compare myself to him. And I'm going, compared to Alan, I have achieved zip. Absolutely nothing. And then I was reminded that there are 3 schools of psychology, and the third one is really interesting because it says stop comparing yourself to other people. Compare yourself to for your own progress against your own targets. Well, you did have some, didn't you? Yeah, they're in my planner. They're in the sub sheet that I now print out and stick on the wall, so it's constant, just like John does. Constant reminder. Stop comparing yourself against everybody else. Set yourself a target. Compare yourself to get how far towards that have I got? Or, oh, look, I've achieved it. Now, I'm not saying reward yourself, because we've probably all tried that 90s thing of, oh, okay, make your goals successful by just setting a clear enough reward and magically you will achieve it. Doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You mentioned obviously the word ambitious just now, and I've written down a few other words here that either you've used when talking about ambition or I'm paraphrasing. And I've written down the words greed and ruthlessness. And it's interesting that that's one way you could interpret ambition.
Yeah.
I've also just Googled the dictionary definition of ambition. And the official dictionary definition of ambition is a strong desire to do or achieve something. Wow. It's got nothing to do with greed.
No.
It's got nothing to do with being an arsehole or a hard-nosed businessman.
No.
It's got everything to do with the second of my magic ingredients from Big Ideas for Small Businesses, desire. It's really, really wanting something.
Yeah.
Wanting to do something, wanting to achieve, not wanting to have something,
Yeah.
not wanting to own something, but to do or achieve something.
And it's really interesting you say that. I'm doing some research into hybrid working because there's massive questions about how do we do hybrid working and is it hybrid or is it flexible, etc. And I was talking to a guy I know who used to be a racing driver, and he forwarded me an article which was just really fundamental about all of that stuff. People aren't interested. Really, we're not driven by having stuff. We're driven by achieving something, making something happen, engineers typically, my degree is in electrical and electronic engineering. So that was always about building cool electronics that did interesting stuff. But we are motivated as human beings for two things: relationship with other people and achieving something. So I'm, you know what? I didn't know this was going to turn into a coaching call, but it's already done that.
Well, I often think this. You mentioned racing drivers just now. I'm presuming it's not Lewis Hamilton that you're working with, but how does Lewis Hamilton motivate himself to prepare to be at the very, very top of his game, to concentrate, to focus, and to work so hard to drive a car at the very, very edge of his limits, 250 miles an hour towards a wall with someone else next to him, when he doesn't need the money, he's got no room for the trophies, he's got no need for any more recognition, he's got nothing to prove to anybody. What motivates him? What is his ambition? Is it just measuring himself against, is he measuring himself against Schumacher, Senna, or is he measuring himself against Lewis Hamilton last week?
Yeah. My suspicion is, and obviously I don't know, my suspicion is that the one thing he doesn't do that lots of other people do, is he doesn't compare himself to other people and say, I'm going to try and be like this. Because if he compared himself to Sterling Moss, he'd still be driving in a way that just doesn't work for a modern car. Valentino Rossi is another good example. He's been racing motorcycles at the highest level for 20 years. So actually what's happened over 20 years is the technology has changed. All through Lewis's career, the technology has changed. So every year there is a new challenge to overcome, but he isn't out there to be better than Vettel, which actually he always was. And maybe that's controversial. I think he always was anyway. Yeah. But then notice what happened to, as I mentioned, what happened to Sebastian Vettel? Why did seemingly his performance degrade? And we could argue about the different technologies in the vehicles, and it's down to hundredths of a second, and we know all of that stuff. So potentially it's that. Potentially it's, did he stop working on strengthening his strengths, to steal from my friend I was talking to yesterday, or did he start to work on strengthening his weaknesses? And if you work on strengthening your weaknesses all the time, you just get more and more demoralized. And actually, why not strengthen your strengths? It's much easier to take a good performer and make them great than a poor performer in your team and make them good. Because a poor performer probably is driven by a whole load of psychology stuff, and it's really hard to get them above the average line. You take somebody who's already above average, it's really easy to make them good. You just spot the things they're really good at and say, I want you to do more of that. Work out how you can get better at the thing you're already good at, because they're already motivated.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm never going to be a great golf player, isn't it? Because I'm not starting from a good place.
Yeah. Well, Tiger Woods, over his career, he's had a number of massive issues. You said something about every 18 months, something bad happens, and we pick ourselves up and we keep going because I'm going to use that definition, because we have ambition, because we want to make something happen. We want to make the world a better place. And so Tiger Woods injured, and golf clubs have changed. So I hadn't grasped this, but the way the shaft flexes now means that the way you swing, if you're going to get the ball to go as far, has slightly changed. And so he's had to relearn and redo all of that stuff. And so you've got to be committed. You've got to want to keep moving forward and be dedicated to doing that. I think you've also, one of the things in a team, when you've worked in a good team, because it's not about the great social events. And we went clay pigeon shooting or blind 4x4 driving, which, by the way, I've never done, but sounds brilliant and hilarious and very scary if you're in the passenger seat. But those things, we do them because they build an essence of a team. The guy who you've been, or the woman you've been on a climbing trip with, and you have belayed them going up this vertical face, and they've got to the top, and you've successfully locked the rope just before they let go and stopped them crashing to their death. You have a bond with them that transcends everything else. So the great teams are the ones where, and I worked in one great team, we actually had to make a pact that we would leave the building when the lights went off. So 6:30, all the lights went off automatically, and you had to do this kind of chair dance to make the lights come back on. And we were having so much fun that we realized that we needed something external to stop us working. So we said, okay, when the lights go off, you save your work, you pack up, and you go home. Always, because otherwise we're going to get completely burned out really early on. So there's something about working together that is important. There's something about having a sense of belonging, but a sense of purpose is the thing that drives you forward.
Definitely. Have you mentioned earlier about working on strengths rather than working on weaknesses. And this is something that I kind of looked into a few years ago. I was doing a lot of personal development, self-evaluation into strengths and weaknesses. And I don't know if you've come across this this idea before, but it's the idea that you can only ever improve where you are by 20%. So if you're currently a 4 out of 10 on anything that is weak, most you can take that to is a 6.
Yeah.
So don't try and take a 4 out of 10 to 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Possible. You can take an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. But you can only ever improve where you are by 2 percentage points or 20%. So it's identifying and saying, well, yes, you could improve a weakness. And maybe improving a weakness there's a margin of gain to be had there by taking it from a 2 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. But is there a greater return on investment by taking a 6 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10?
Yeah. And it depends what you're trying to achieve. Partly in answer to your question, I'm going to refer to the sign that is over your left shoulder because it's a marginal gain. So yeah, you might only make 2% today, but can you find a way of compounding that?
Yeah.
But the point is actually really well made. You can actually put less effort in to move up the higher up the scale you go. The greater amount you have invested, the greater amount of compound return you get on it, etc. So it makes common sense. I think that from a human perspective, look, we've been everything from your first day in school to your last day in school has always been around. That's wrong. This is how you get it right. That's broken. This is how you fix it. I mean, at one level, at one heart, I'm an engineer. So what does an engineer do? Well, find stuff that is broken and fix it. And if I showed you, I've got, amplifiers and boxes and electronic gizmos that are broken, waiting to be fixed. And they'll probably be waiting to be fixed when I'm in the ground.
Most engineers do is take something that's working, take it apart, cause it to no longer work, and then fix it, don't they?
Try very hard not to do that. But so we're taught to look for something that's broken and work out how to fix it. And actually, that's the thing that undermines your resilience is you say, oh, I'm just no good at this. I'll never be any good at it. We know this kind of self-talk cycle, which just drives us down. Whereas if you look at the stuff that works well and say, how do I get more of that? It appreciates. So this is a school of thinking called appreciative inquiry and research done by an amazing guy called David Cooper Ryder, which really is 2 R's, 2 O's, 2 R's. And it is that. So instead of saying, oh, how do I get better at this? What's going well? How do I get more of that? And in a team setting, a team that shares and goes, do you know what? I tried this last week and it worked really well. Okay. What does that look like for all the rest of us to do something like that? Instead of, well, I had this big problem with client X and everyone goes, oh, they're such a nightmare. And we just go down and down and down. If you look for what works well and say, how do I get more of it? It goes up. But we're not taught to do that. It feels like, human nature is to look for the broken stuff and try and improve it.
So within the 1% Club, we encourage members to share their Wednesday wins. What's gone well? We encourage them to share a feel-good Friday, something that's happening in their life that is going well. Why don't we do Monday moans? Take everyone down. We can make people worse, can't we? We can get some marginal... What's the opposite again? Marginal losses. There we go.
Marginal losses.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are for, isn't it, John? That's one thing on a Monday. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are the moan days. That's fine.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best days because they're the solid work days of, okay, there's nothing in the way. Power through.
Tuesdays, Thursdays, deep work days. That's
absolutely. Yeah. The standard week calendar on the wall, because of what you talked about, is blocked out in particular things. So, yeah.
I'd love, if I may, because there's no point having the author of the Resilience Toolkit, on our podcast if we couldn't use some of those tools to help some of our listeners with the setbacks that they have, because obviously all business owners have setbacks. They lose a client, they get the work, or lots of things happen, working 80 hours a week, etc. There's lots of things in there, isn't there? What can we take out of your toolkit that we could use to help just a few little tidbits for anybody who's listening, really, and to improve their resilience?
Okay, great question. Well, the book's got 24, 25 different tools in it, and they're kind of grouped into thinking patterns and behavioral patterns and relationship patterns. But I think the simple answer to your question is we need to start defining and be clear on what we mean by resilience. So lots of people talk about resilience as the ability to bounce back. But, it really isn't that, because resilience is what gets you through a difficult encounter and out the other side. And that when we go through a difficult encounter, we will be different afterwards, and hopefully in a positive way. It depends on circumstance. It might be more catastrophic than that. But if we end up different the other side, we don't bounce back to where we were before. So it's not about bounce back ability. It's about growing through and becoming stronger through what we endure. For whatever reason, I'm completely driven to find models and things that are memorable for people. So the word stronger is the key here. So what's the first thing to pay attention to? The S stands for sleep. And you just said, working 80 hours a week. So first of all, we need to go back to very old, and I can't remember when, piece of research. When you work more than 40 hours a week, the contribution that the extra hours make drops really steeply after 40 hours. So, it's your lifestyle, it's your business. Can you make it 40 hours in some way, shape, or form? And I know there are people going, do you have no idea what the stuff I have to do every week? Hang on a minute. Let's just back up the horses. What are the things that really make a contribution? This is the one thing writ large. Know the things that make the biggest difference and do those first. And then maybe, spending time on Twitter is fun, but have I actually ever got any business through Twitter? Maybe one or two. There's a couple that hang in the balance. They look really positive and then nothing happens and you get ghosted. It's fun. Okay, let's put it in a box over there and say it's fun. Let's block it out of our phone by install the Freedom app or whatever you have to do to block it out. Work out the things that make a contribution to your business and do those first. And then say, well, these are actually fun things. And I'd rather watch, Manhunt than scroll through Twitter for an hour. So sleep is the first thing. Why is it the first thing? Because sleep has such a massive impact on our health, our well-being, our ability to control our emotions, our ability to learn. And we all know what happens. You have a bad night's sleep. You wake up in the morning, you glug some coffee, you have a nice bulletproof one. Yeah, John, I'm really not convinced. I bought the nice Kerrygold butter and I made up a really nice coffee. And it was like, okay, it's good, but I'm not convinced. Anyway, you definitely then have this dip in the afternoon. You feel knackered, so you grab another cup of coffee. Caffeine has a half-life of 7 hours, which means you don't go to sleep properly. The next day you're knackered, so you do repeat the same again and again and again. So sleep is the number one thing. How do you get better sleep? You think about cats. Caffeine, number one, reduce your caffeine intake. No caffeine after 12. A is for alcohol. Alcohol is a sedative. We think it helps us to sleep. It really doesn't. You're not asleep, you're sedated, which is why when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you feel horrible. Yes, you're dehydrated. Yes, you need to pee and all those other things. But stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning without alcohol, and you'll find you feel mostly the same thing. The T is for technology. Don't have a television in your bedroom. We know all about I keep saying bedroom hygiene, but it's really not a good way of saying it. We know about what you have to do to have a good bedroom environment. It's got to be dark. It's got to be quiet. It's got to be cool, and no technology, please. So television's off the wall. I can't grab my phone. It's charging, but that is the most expensive alarm clock you ever had. Buy a £10 one on Amazon instead. Put your phone somewhere else in the house on charge. Don't take it to bed, because then you won't scroll before you go to sleep, and you won't scroll first thing you wake up. S is for a sunset. Routine. Ding.
There you go.
So have a routine. You do have a routine of going to bed every night. You're probably not aware of it. You have a routine for getting up in the morning. So do these things to put sleep as your top priority. Yes, we have sleep disorders. There are times when you wake up in the night. I mean, I had a nightmare last night, dreamt I was being bitten by a 5-headed snake, which bit into my shoulder, and so I sounded, ah! My wife goes, it's all right, it's all right. That's partly trauma being processed, but I digress. Yes, you may not sleep very well. Work out what to do to go back to sleep if you can. Sleep is your number one thing that enables you to cope with what happens to you the next day. So S is for sleep. T in stronger is for thinking. So just be aware of your own thoughts. I've probably shown quite a lot of that by what I've talked about already. Are you aware of your thought life? You actually can control it. Read the chimp paradox to get an insight into what on earth is going on inside your head, the chimp versus the human versus the computer. Think about your thinking. The R is for relationships, and that really does come third. The relationships you have are the things that sustain you and get you through the difficult times, whether they are the immediate ones, so the people you live with, your nearest and dearest, or whether they are more distant ones, your friends in the 1% club in our case. Work out which are the primary relationships, which are the ones you need to nurture more, which are the ones are actually an energy sink, and dare I say deprioritize those. Where are we? STR. O is for ownership and boundaries. So this, I think, is really relevant to us in our own businesses. Is, are you clear on what your boundaries are between what you will give away for free, as we've already talked about, when you start work, when you stop work, what is work time? What do you give yourself permission to not do or do at certain times of the day? Put in place some boundaries. This is the thing about the one thing slot that I think we all three of us have got in the beginning of the day, 90 minutes of the one thing. What are the boundaries around that? No phone calls, no email, no phone on the desk, etc. So ownership, be clear on what is yours and what isn't yours. And this is where it works is really important in teams. If we lead a team, it's really essential for them to know what the boundaries are, what stuff do they own, what do they not, and be really clear about it. Notice how that hooks back into how we get better at stuff. The conversation we were just having. Ownership. N is for noticing. Keep a journal. Notice what happens to you. If you run your lifestyle business, when's the last time you paused to reflect on? Well, that's what the World Domination Planner does. What's going well? What could be going better? What are you going to do differently next time? 3, as I used to call them, magic questions we should be asking ourselves on a weekly basis to notice what's going on. The research shows that people who keep a journal are more resilient. But that doesn't mean just keeping a journal once a month when things are difficult. It means keeping a journal every single week. Now, you don't have to do anything clever or fancy. You could just go to Paper Chase and buy the brown covered booklets and scribble in it in pencil, which is generally what I do. Just get something out of your head onto a page. And if you do it before you go to sleep, chances are you'll sleep better. STR, notice. G is for goals. I'm not going to say anything about that because it's painted around the walls in John's office. And there we are. Goals, desire, knowledge, environment, action. If you mix up, and there's alpha learning on there. If you mix up the order of those, you get an acronym you can remember, which is GLADE. So clear goals puts you in a beautiful forest glade. So goals, E is for energy. Manage your energy, not your time. So actually comes back to what you were saying. 80 hours a week is what I have to work. Well, start thinking about managing your energy instead. Then you might start worrying about your nutrition instead of eating all the junk food and the biscuits and too much coffee or whatever it is. Manage your energy. It's much more effective use to manage your energy, not your time. And then the R on the end is for reserves. And we're used to the idea of having financial reserves, and hopefully, ambitious lifestyle business people, the first thing you've done is start to put aside a bit of money every month. So you've got, what do we talk about? 3 months of the kind of basic running costs to one side. Put the reserves aside for your tax bill and your VAT bill. But there are also reserves in your mental margin, in your physical margin. So just be aware of and have some things in reserve. Have some time in reserve so that if something really interesting comes along, an interesting opportunity to go somewhere, the sun's shining, let's go to Lyme Regis and walk by the sea for the day. If you live in Bristol, that's a pretty good option, 90-minute drive. I know you live in Plymouth, so easy. But if the sun shines, you think, I want to go for a nice walk. Yep. Have it in reserve so you can do it. So there you go. Be stronger.
Yes, thank you.
Very long-winded answer. Sorry, Jason.
No, that's okay. I'm used to those today. It's fine. Just wondering, not just from you. Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. I just realised that sounded
brilliant.
Oh dear, I'm used to having long-winded answers from John, so that's all good. I'm just wondering, how did you find your way into our world? Because it doesn't seem an easy step into our world from what you're kind of been doing really prior to your business, then obviously having your business together for 10 years. So how did you find out about us and find out?
How I found out about you was basically because I read the books, because I listened to the books, because I read the books, and when I want to hang out with this famous guy Lamerton, I want to buy him coffee and cake. I wonder if I can buy him coffee and cake. Because
anybody listening to this right now, you can always buy me coffee and cake. Coffee after midday, but cake anytime.
Oh, okay, cake. And yeah, I thought your body was a temple, sir.
It's Buddha. That's
so that's how I found out. And I went, do you know what? This big ideas for small business, there's loads in here. And there was something applicable on almost every chapter. There was something I could take away from. And I just went, but I've been doing this for a decade, mainly by myself. That's no offense to my dear friend Chris as my business coach. We've been co-coaching for probably 9 years out of those 11 or 12. But actually, I needed a community. When you run your own business, it can be incredibly lonely. And actually, the people around you who do a job don't get. They just see the lovely bit of you don't have to go to work every day, or you can choose when to go for a walk in the park, or a PT instructor, or whatever other examples you've got. They don't see the agony of opening up the email in the morning and finding no answer to your questions to a client, or the phone call from a client that you think, okay, so she's agreed. And I had this week. I agreed to a phone call. That must mean that I am okay and that this work is on. And the phone call starts with, this is a little bit tricky, but this is not going to happen now. It may happen later. And we've all been in this game long enough that we know that actually, in some cases, that's just trying to be a very gentle letdown that this is not going to happen. So I've lost track of your answer. How did I find you? You need a community around you, and a 1% club provides that. What I love is, and I've been to, I'm not going to name them because all the other networking groups I have been to, and I'm quite good at walking around the room and meeting strangers and talking to strangers and everything else. I realized after 8 years of FSB membership, I had sold one day of one workshop in 8 years. The return on investment of that is really, really small, but they also were not a community of people that I wanted to hang out with. The 1% Club is somehow completely different. I would happily hang out with all of you And we're all really different. Again, it would be unfair to call out anybody who sticks in our minds, but hey, you're watching this, you know who you are. We know who we are, but there's something really nice about a broad variety. And you don't say, well, we've got one business coach, can't have any more. We don't seem to tread on each other's toes. Everybody's willing to share. So it's a great place to be. I needed a community. I'll also be really honest with you, is that it was also a no-brainer, no-cost option to me, because through some bizarre thing, I got an email from my bank quite a while ago that said, trying to encourage people to consider alternative business banking solutions. And there could be a payout of up to £1,500 if you switch your bank. And I went, really? You're not serious? Because I was already thinking of switching. And so I kind of just put it to one side. Eventually I did it and I got my 1,500 quid. So armed with my 1,500 quid, I thought, well, that's 15 months of the 1% club. I have nothing to lose by joining. So I'm being really honest, but I'm also being a businessman about it and going, where's the money come from to do this? You may think, if you're wondering about 1% club, you may think 99 quid a month, that's a lot of money. No, it isn't, because that's after the VAT. So it's actually cheaper than that. I'm right, aren't I?
Yeah, £80.67 plus VAT, I think it is. Yeah.
Exactly. So you get access to all this great stuff. You get access to coaching calls and people who you would never otherwise have access to. So in the last week, was it this week? Did we talk to Gerald on Monday?
Yeah, last Thursday.
In the last week, I've heard from two people who are world famous names for good reasons and maybe not so good reasons. Absolutely fascinating, completely absorbing 90 minutes. That's priceless. So that's how I ended up here. That's why I would be here. That's why I will stay here. I just need to sell one course a month to stay. So I want to know what you're going to do to help me. And the answer, of course, is you're going to say nothing, because that's the other thing is you're very clear from the beginning. We're not going to do it for you.
Yep.
I love the fact that our calls, weekly calls, Jason, are called accountability calls. Because that's actually what I need. I've always been thinking, I could make a lot of money as a coach by just being your accountability partner. And the good coaches are the ones who say, what are you going to do this week? I'm going to do this. Okay. And then when you get back next week, so you said you were going to do this. Have you done it? No, we shy away from that as a coach. We don't do that kind of thing. Well, no, we need it, especially small business people, because I'm a shiny object kind of person. Oh, look, there's this here and that here. Sorry, again, another long answer.
Loving it. Thank you. Yes. Well, coming to the end of our time, to be fair, it is about that. I don't know if John's got another question first before we wrap up.
No, I was just keen to know, really, where people can find the book.
Okay, so you can find the book in any good bookstore or on Amazon, but there is another sneaky way to get yourself a copy, which is so my company is called Making Teams Work. Not surprisingly, it does what it says on the tin. And if you go to Making Teams Work Resilience Training, so there's a dash in these words, and I've only just realized why we use a dash and not underbar. It's one less keystroke. You don't have to hold the shift key to get a dash. You just type the word. So resilience training. And there's a button at the top. It says, crank up your resilience. If you click that, it takes you through to the GuruKan website where you can get access to the online training course that goes through all those elements of the stronger model in a lot more detail. And as part of the purchase of that course, you get a free copy of the book thrown in. You also get a Facebook group, and you also get an Ask Me Anything call every month. So that's the way to get it. But if you really want a copy, Amazon is your friend, unless of course you already know me, in which case send me a message. We'll work out another way so I get more than just an Amazon royalty. You'd expect me to say that, wouldn't you? And ambitious lifestyle business folk, if you get a trial to get a little more detail on the stronger model. And if you want to purchase the course, you then get the option within this thing called GuruKan. Discount code ALBOCT21. So ALBOCT21 will get you 25% off the price. So you didn't quite give me an opportunity to pitch, but I took it anyway.
Well, there you are. That's That's what it's all about, isn't it? Take those opportunities and got to take action. And brilliant. Thank you indeed for joining us on this month's ALB podcast.
Great. Thank you very much for asking me. I'm honoured to be included. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And we will see you all next month for another episode. I think it's Christmas special time next month, isn't it, Jace?
We are getting on to that Christmas special. We do love
time
a nice
to dig out
Christmas
the
special.
Santa hats. If I keep eating enough cake, I'll at least be able to fit into the Santa suit.
And I've got the grey beard, so we're all good.
Fantastic. Have a good one, guys. See you later.
And you, cheers. Take care.
So there we are, another episode in the can. How was it for you? Please let us know. However you listen to these podcasts, please leave a review on that platform. Let us know what we can do better, what you like, what you don't like, and how we can improve to make this show even better for you. We'll see you next time.